Pardon me. Mr. Lewis, you could do a real service to this committee by making us understand whether VMT is the answer to our problems. Now, I really don't want to go down a rat hole, but I was one of those who thought that, well, this may be the answer. But I'm looking at Colorado's comparison experiment. And we really need your most candid assessment here, because Colorado had the pilot program, and under your program, the drivers were able to compare what they would pay under road usage charge versus current gas tax. Now, I wonder if you see any problems in the eventual transaction and without a raise in the gas tax. If we simply converted an inadequate gas tax to a per mile, this is my real question, to a per mile, it's the status quo, but it's a per mile fee at the same rate, which is inadequate, would the VMT do us any good? Or is it inevitable that the gas tax would have to come up because as people saw these comparisons, they would see the difference? In other words, what did the pilot tell us?
Right. Thank you, Ranking Norton. I think an excellent question. I think Mr. DeFazio raised it as well. I think, and many of my panel members, we are not there today.
You're not what?
We are not there ready to implement a road usage charge today. That's why we have these pilot programs in place, initiated by Oregon more than 15 years ago to test out, is this a viable option? I had the honor of testifying before this committee maybe 5 years ago, and we were talking about maybe by 2025 that would be ready. I would say that, and I would support my colleagues, that we need a bridge. If we're ever going to get to a road usage charge, we need a bridge to get there. If it's 10 years away, Colorado's getting into a $5 billion deficit in that 10 years. Before we're ready to implement a road usage charge. But
would that mean a gradual raise in the gas tax over time so people wouldn't?
If that is certainly one option. It's what's in place today. Administratively would be a relatively easy way to go. I think it's a politically difficult way to go, as has been mentioned. But if we're going to, the concern about the sustainability, and some of my colleagues talked about this, the sustainability of a fuel tax. It's not indexed. We know that. So in 25 years, we've lost 60% of its buying power. But the other thing that's really important to think about is I believe there's no turning back on the evolution of motor vehicles to be operated by electric motors or alternative fuels. The auto manufacturers are already, planning to go that route. So over time, we will be taking in, if we stick to the fuel tax, we'll be taking in less and less revenue per vehicle mile traveled.
The automatic vehicles will use what, less?
An electric vehicle will pay no fee.
Oh, the electric vehicle.
Electric vehicle will pay no fee.
Yeah.
Compressed natural gas vehicle will pay no gas tax. So those are coming. And I think we need to prepare ourselves for that. We need to get ahead of it. And I think that for every day that we delay further study on a potential alternative is a day that will be late implementing it. That's why we feel that the Western states, it's so important to study more. These questions that you've raised are absolutely important questions. How do we operate? Are you
testing the transition costs as well, so that we would know whether or not a gradual raise in the gas tax or some other solution, as you see the comparisons?
Yeah, I think that's an administrative or legislative discussion, because we see it as a potential future replacement for the fuel tax. But in that period of time when we all know that, we still need to make that bridge, so we have sufficient revenues to fund the Highway Trust Fund, we're going to have to do something more than what we're doing today. One of the pilots that is underway right now between California and Oregon is to study about interoperability. How does one state reimburse another state for travel between states? That's something that has to be worked out. How do we do that across the whole country? The I-95 Coalition has a similar pilot underway to think about how would you do it in, I believe, Pennsylvania and Delaware are working on that. There's a lot more study. We are not ready yet. I want to be very careful to say we are not ready to implement that yet, but it is I think what the pilots are showing.
How much longer? I mean, is there a time frame
I think
for
it's
this
difficult.
study?
I would say it's probably still 10 years off before it can be fully implemented.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lewis. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.